Every year, as autumn winds start turning cold, countless gardeners unknowingly sabotage the compost they worked all season to build. They mix the right materials, water carefully, and even turn their piles faithfully. Yet by December, that same compost pile sits soggy, cold, and lifeless, nothing but a heavy mess that can't heat, can't decompose, and won't nourish anything come spring. The problem isn't the materials or the effort, it's the habit of treating compost as if it's alive only during summer. The mistake that renders compost useless every winter is neglecting its carbon-to-nitrogen balance when the weather turns cold. Once temperatures drop, most gardeners stop layering brown materials. They keep adding kitchen scraps, banana peels, coffee grounds, rotting fruit, and assume the pile will continue breaking down. But without dry matter to balance that surge of nitrogen, the compost goes anaerobic. Instead of decomposing, it ferments. Instead of humus, it becomes sour sludge. To keep your compost alive through the cold months, you must manage it like a living soil ecosystem, balanced, breathing, and insulated from the chill. When nitrogen overwhelms the pile, the system collapses. Every compost pile lives or dies by the carbon-to-nitrogen ratio, often called the CN ratio. It determines whether bacteria and fungi can process organic matter efficiently. The ideal range sits around 25 to 30 parts carbon for every 1 part nitrogen. In simple terms, that means for every bucket of green material like fruit peels, coffee grounds, or grass clippings, you need roughly 2 to 3 buckets of dry browns, leaves, shredded paper, straw, or sawdust. When that ratio tilts too heavily toward nitrogen, microbes burn out, their population spikes, oxygen drops, and the pile begins to rot instead of breathe. This is the silent killer of compost every late season. By December, the pile becomes dense and sticky, holding too much moisture and not enough air. Fungi disappear, worms retreat, and bacteria shift from aerobic to anaerobic, producing acids and ammonia. The smell alone tells you it's no longer composting, it's decomposing in the wrong direction. To correct this, start by stockpiling carbon sources now. Collect dry leaves, shred cardboard, and store them in bags or bins beside your compost area. Each time you add kitchen waste, mix in 2 equal handfuls of dry matter and lightly turn the top foot of the pile. This keeps oxygen channels open and maintains a healthy microbial rhythm even as outside temperatures fall. Another reason compost becomes useless by December is excessive moisture. Rain and frost soak into exposed piles, sealing air pockets and smothering the life inside. In cold weather, that moisture never evaporates, it just freezes and thaws, compressing the pile further. The result is a stagnant, swamp-like mass where decomposition halts completely. To prevent this, focus on structure and cover. The top of your pile should always be domed, not flat. A rounded top allows water to run off instead of pooling. Cover the pile with a thick blanket of straw or coarse mulch about 4 inches deep, or lay a breathable tarp over it that shields against rain while allowing some airflow. Avoid plastic sheets, which trap condensation and suffocate microbes. Alright, if your pile is feeling a bit heavy or wet, don't worry. You can repair it by adding 2 layers. First, lay down a thick bed of shredded leaves or dry straw, about 4 inches deep. This will soak up that excess moisture. Then, sprinkle a bit of soil or finished compost over the top to reseed microbial life. Within a week, you'll notice the core warming up again, which is proof that oxygen and activity have returned. Many gardeners, think that composting stops in winter because it's too cold. But in truth, microbes are incredibly resilient. Even in freezing temperatures, decomposition continues slowly in the center of a well-built pile. What really stops compost from working is when it becomes airless, compacted, or unbalanced. To keep biological activity alive through December and beyond, focus on insulation and layering. Build the pile tall, at least 3 feet high and 3 feet wide. That mass traps heat, maintaining internal temperatures 10 to 15 degrees warmer than the air outside. Between every 2 layers of green material, add a layer of dry browns and a light sprinkle of garden soil. Soil provides buffering minerals and native decomposers that stabilize the system. So, for example, when you add a bucket of vegetable scraps, you should follow it with 2 buckets of shredded leaves, mix it up just a bit, and then finish with a handful of soil. You want to repeat this rhythm every single time you add new material. That ratio, 1 part greens to 2 parts browns topped off with some soil, gives microbes exactly the environment they need to keep digesting, even when it gets cold outside. By late fall, most gardeners actually stop turning their piles because they're worried about losing heat. But, honestly, that's a mistake. What compost really needs is oxygen. Without turning it every so often, gases start to build up, especially when you've got a lot of high nitrogen stuff, like kitchen waste in there. These gases can suffocate the aerobic microbes and, well, push the pile towards stagnation. Instead of full turning, you'll want to use the winter half-turn technique. Just push a fork about 12 inches deep into the pile and gently lift sections to introduce air, without fully collapsing the heat core. Do this every 3 weeks. If you notice steam or warmth rising from the center, that means the pile is still active. That's really the sign of a healthy system breathing properly. But if there's no warmth, go ahead and reintroduce some dry carbon and cover it again with straw. One of the most overlooked defenses for winter composting is honestly the foundation layer beneath the pile. Building compost directly on the ground without any drainage just invites saturation from rainwater or melting frost. This slowly drowns the base, rots the lower layers, and spreads decay upward until, well, the whole system fails. Always start your compost pile with a coarse foundation about 6 inches thick. Branches, twigs, or wood chips work perfectly for this. This layer acts like an air grate, letting excess water drain away and helping oxygen move upward. On top of that, you'll want to build your alternating layers of greens and browns as usual. The foundation not only prevents rot, but also shelters beneficial insects and worms that migrate upward as the pile warms. By December, the difference between rich, crumbly compost and a dead, slimy mess really comes down to management. Compost isn't just a bin of waste, it's a living colony that needs balance, oxygen, and protection. When you neglect carbon inputs, forget to drain or cover, and stop aerating, the life inside just shuts down. But if you respect those principles, your compost can hum quietly through even the coldest months, ready to burst with microbial life in spring. Keep feeding it thoughtfully, cover it properly, and let it breathe. By spring, you'll have dark, sweet-smelling humus, rich in nutrients and beneficial life. While honestly, most gardeners are still trying to revive their ruined piles. If you found this guide helpful and want to keep mastering soil systems that thrive through every season, make sure to subscribe to Hydro Haven and share this video with your fellow gardeners. Together, we'll keep building compost that never dies, no matter how cold December gets.